in poverty more money every year. They didn't give them any counseling. They didn't do any. They just gave their families more money, and then they rescanned their brains in a year, and those kiddos had made up a brain volume loss of 4 to 6% in that year. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that the parents were less stressed out, struggling financially, and that translated into less stress for the kiddos. So when you're serving these adults, you are serving absolutely the kids in these families. And I just wanted to make quick mention of historical trauma because in the rich history and the state of South Dakota in which we live in, our Indigenous people are suffering from historical trauma. The body remembers. We actually have studies that show how trauma is passed on from generation to generation, as is resilience. And again, that's a whole other training, but we should be very aware of that. Working with our Indigenous students, we should make it a priority to be trained about that, to have interventions about culture, and to be able to educate our own students about what might be going on with them and how they can get help. I'm going to talk about why we're learning all this. It's really a trauma-informed environment. We're going to transition into the resources here in just a minute, but I wanted to bring you back to a trauma-informed environment. I love this definition. A trauma-informed environment, or what I love even more, a healing-informed environment. You guys learning all this is so you can be innovative and creative teachers that you are and adapt your materials and adapt your approach to give these guys the best chance that they can have with their crisis-adapted brain, with their trauma-adapted brain. So a trauma-informed environment realizes the widespread impact of trauma and understands potential paths for recovery. So we realize it and we figure out ways out. We recognize signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, and staff and others involved in our systems, and we define it as such. We don't look at people as damaged or broken or really making bad choices. You know, people make bad choices, but we want to frame things first in their experience. What are they doing? Why are they doing this? Coming from a place of curiosity. And then we respond by fully integrating this knowledge into our policies, procedures, and practices, which is what the Career Learning Center here in Rapid is doing, and it's really amazing. And the outcomes are amazing as well. Okay, now I wanted to, oops, I went backwards. I wanted to briefly give you guys a couple of things, an overview of trauma-informed practices in higher education settings before we drill down on a couple of resources. Now, the biggest thing is, what do we learn about this crisis-adapted brain? We learn that they are in the present moment. Their long-term planning and thinking is not optimized because they don't have safety and security. So we need to make everything that we tell our students relative to their here and now. They are constantly assessing things as, what do I need to do right now, and why is this important to me, and how is this going to help me? So you want to establish clear expectation. You want to be that dependable person. They are not. They're kind of, you're going to be here and they're going to be bumping in and out. You need to be that dependable person. If you say you're going to do something even small, you need to do it, because remember, that crisis adapted brain is scanning you. You're either a threat to them or an ally. And if they can't trust you, it's going to trigger those traumatic responses. So even with your word, even with my office hours are here, or I will help you with this, or I will send you this, or I will email you this, those clues that this is a relationship and a person I can trust. You want to give them various options for communications. Now, we're getting really good at this, and I think this pandemic has really helped us out, but many of our high crisis clients cannot afford internet, or they have bad credit, so they don't have internet at home, but that's why they all have smartphones. It's not because they are selfish and they're using, you know, money that should go to food to a smartphone. It's because they're very resourceful. They need that smartphone. You need that smartphone. You can get a hotspot, you can get Wi-Fi without horrible credit. You can get straight talk, pay as you go. And if you want, and if your department says it's okay, you're going to increase outcomes with this clientele by utilizing apps that you can communicate through, by utilizing visual strategies. Remember, their visual acuity is high. And you want them to have some mechanism to be able to communicate with you in real time. As they're thinking about it, they can communicate to you. Now, that doesn't mean that you are going to have to respond in real time, and you're going to make that very clear to them. If you have an app that connects you to your student, you can say, hey, if you think about a question, message me. I'll get back to you within 24 hours, except on the weekends. Make it clear expectations, but give them a mechanism for their crisis brain to sort of get that question out as they have it, if you're able to do that. Always, always, always building relationships. We know that the brain heals. All of those brain scans I showed you, that brain will adapt once their life is more peaceful. And what heals trauma? Relationships. If the brain gets a safety and validation signal from a person over and over, their brain starts to heal. So you actually have the ability to have relationships with your students to heal their crisis adapted brains and give them a better shot at getting through the hoops of our middle class systems, right? Always, always, always include coping tips and resources. If you do not have in your place of business right now, which I'm sure you all do, a very comprehensive list of referrals for all types of complex human problems, have somebody work on that now and have it be very easy to give. Have it in electronic form that you can send through that app. Have them be able to take a picture of it so they can keep it in their phone. Middle class people, we like to have all this paper, right? We like to have like, okay, I'm gonna print this off. We're going more digital, but they need to have something they can access in the moment. So I often encourage my clients to take, when we've done something on paper, to take a photo of it and save it in the notes section of their phone, and they can access it. And again, you are working with a crisis adapted brain, so you are going to review information ad nauseum. If you think it's too annoying, it's probably not enough with your brain, okay? That crisis adaptive brain doesn't hold memory in the same way. Repetition, routine, all of those things are things to have that. And you also should receive training in handling any kind of information that could be triggering. If you're going to talk about something, particularly, here's an example with our Indigenous students, if you're going to talk about historical trauma, you might want to just say, if somebody is experiencing something traumatic based on what we talk about, you can take a step back, take a step out, go take a time out. I'll come and check in with you. I'll do some breathing with you. We want to make sure that people have an idea that they might be triggered and that we're really responsive to it. Again, I've already talked about the resources. And then again, you guys, self-care, we did the reframing up and there's so much more, but you have to care for yourself. You are dealing with complex human beings, so you're gonna deal with complex human problems. And you already know this, you already are. So instead of fighting against it, just accept it and say, this is where I am in this space, and I need to be sure that I'm okay, and that I'm not judging, and that I'm not thinking bad things about my students, and that I'm feeling strong emotionally, mentally, and physically, and that I place a priority on that so I can go out and do the best work in the most meaningful way that I can. Okay, we're gonna shift gears now, and I'm gonna check my time. I'm rocking and rolling here. We're going to shift gears now to the Charting the Life course materials. I'm going to highlight 2 materials today. You can go to this website and actually download these forms that I'm going to show you. And the way they have it set up, it's really cool now. The forms, you could actually draw on these forms and print them off. But with this innovation, it's made it more difficult for me to show a picture of it on the screen. So I apologize for how some of these look. I had to actually take a physical picture of the form and try to do this. So can everybody see this? Okay, so this is called Charting the Life course. Lori Larson introduced this to me. She's amazing, and we really adapted this for use in our program, which helped those struggling in poverty achieve job skill or education. This is absolutely, these tools are so in line with the crisis brain. And although this was originally developed for folks with disabilities to, have a place to reflect on their lives and work with their caregivers to see how they could be employed and live meaningful lives in different ways, this is perfectly adapted to those folks who are living in crisis and are trying to make it out of crisis despite big obstacles. So what I love about, I'm going to highlight two of them, but go on this website, look at their resource section and look at all of these resources. They can be adapted for your role in the classroom, and you don't have to do these necessarily with clients, although I think it does build relationship. It does all those things. You can actually send these home, print them off and send these home with clients if they're struggling and say, bring this back tomorrow when we're studying and let's work on this. This is called the Life Trajectory Worksheet. One of the things with the crisis brains, guys, that doesn't happen in a crisis life is, remember our prefrontal cortex. You're just getting through the day. Nobody's sitting down with you saying, like, what kind of life do you want to have? You know, what do you want to do and be? They're like, I don't know. I just want a good life. What does that mean? And when they have time and space, and again, sometimes that time and space is the 5 or 10 minutes that you have with them before you go to take a math test or before you go to proctor something. It doesn't have to be an hour-long session, although that's great. It's getting them and starting to train their brain to be that peaceful brain. I need to think about the life I'm going to have, and I want to do that big picture thinking and then bring it down to the smaller goals to get there. Big picture thinking and smaller goals to get there. Our clients love doing this. It is the most amazing experience to do this in session with them. They talk about things, they cry. You know, people do not understand the power of human connection in somebody who everybody around them is also struggling in the crisis of poverty, and although they love each other deeply and intensely, they don't have the luxury of sitting around and saying, what kind of life should we have? Let's plan this life. So when you take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do that with a client, it is such a beautiful, beautiful gift. So how do you use this worksheet? Well, you can see here, you're asking them. I often start by saying, we're going to use this as a guide to just work through what you want for your life. What do you think a good life is? What is a vision of a good life for you? And I'm going to over some stuff. This is actually a client filled this out. I don't know if hopefully you guys can see this, and it's a little bit different. It's one of the earlier versions, but you know, you start to say, what does a good life mean for you as a person? And they'll start being like, oh, nobody's ever asked me this before. And they start thinking, and again, you are building relationship doing this exercise with them, right? And like this client here, he's an amazing guy. He has, gosh, Lori would remember how many kids, but multiple children. He and his wife really struggling in the crisis of poverty, working different jobs, and he's trying to go to school to get his degree. And so we're working toward getting him that degree and really having to bring him back in session and say, what life do you want? And is what you're doing now going to get you there, right? So he wants good health, positive thinking, no stress, man, they want out of this crisis, right? Being a part of something special and making a difference, you know? He's thinking about these things. Now, what does he want for his family? Really amazing goals over here. You know, he wants healthy family, all of them to be healthy. I know some of his kids had special needs. Being together. I want to enjoy being together. Their crisis lives do not afford them the luxury of actually enjoying each other's time very often. They want no arguments, good communication. I love this one, growing old together. I want to grow old together with my wife. And in the life that he lives in, he doesn't see that very often. And he wants his family taken care of. And then, you know, what do I don't want? I think it's really important for people with those high crisis brains to think about those things. Heck, this is important for us. I was trying to tell you guys to do some of this, right? We're gonna do a little bit more of this in our crisis to clarity next week. You and I are gonna work on some of this in a different fashion. But what do you don't want? You know, I don't want stress and worries. I don't want conflicts. I don't want to keep dwelling on the past. You know, I don't want to go without housing. Housing is a huge stressor in his life. So again, it's not about getting this perfect. It's about the process of going through this. It's about asking them the questions. It's about taking the time. Then you're going to go down to those smaller goals here in this trajectory. You know, what supports your good life? What can you do right now? You're getting your GED. You're coming here and studying. You're being employed. You're going to get your diploma, right? Here it's saying, you know, what is preventing these things? Jobs aren't working out, structure of family has been broken down, financial stress. This gives them an idea of like what they're doing right, which you really want to focus on, and what they're doing here, what's keeping them back. And this is where you want to maybe work with them on some goals too. Keeping this firmed up, the good stuff firmed up, and then working on those negative things and saying, what can we do here that can maybe alleviate some of that? Okay. So that's the first one. And again, I'm going through these quickly, guys. You can go and search around. And again, these are meant to be used in a way that works for you. One of the things that they're doing on this website now, which is so awesome, and I want to explore it further, is they're customizing these forms, and they have a ton of them. I couldn't highlight all of them, to your agency or your work. And I think you could take this and really, really run with this as educators. Now, I love this integrated supports. It's a STAR worksheet. What do we look here? Isn't it visually beautiful? It has colors. Many of our clients, when we start working with them and filling this out, you know, we put their name in the middle. They take this and they want to make a copy of it so they can have a copy on their fridge, because they're visual, in the moment people. When they can see these things, they go back to it. They want to show people, look what I'm working toward. I have something to show for this. It's awesome. So this is where you, and I'll scroll down to the same client's STAR worksheet here. We blocked out names and things. This is where you start saying, what technology do you need to reach your goals that you have? And for a lot of people, it's like cell phone, laptop. I need to get this done. I need to get some jump drives, or this might be educational prep here. What are your personal strengths and assets? You're going to dig deep and tell them what they are. They're a leader. They solve problems, multitasking. You can tell every single person that you work with, they're resilient, right? We're all resilient, right? What are your relationship-based strengths and support? Who in your life is supportive? Your wife, your pastor, your brothers, your friends. Down here, we have more eligibility-specific support. So what do you need to do that could help those negative barriers? And in his case, he needs to build up more social support. He wants to get these SNAP and housing and assistance while he's in school so he can focus more on school and that financial stress is less. And then, of course, you're community-based. Who are your community partners that you can reach out to? These could be individual teachers. This can, you know, CLC, the Career Learning Center. He's put down here Boys Club for his kids, Mommy's Closet, those kind of things. So again, go to the website, check this out. They also have, and I just wanted to show you guys, they even have planning pages now where it has their daily and weekly planners that you can print out for students and get them to start planning time if that's becoming an issue in studying. And again, you want to make sure that this is kind of built into what you're doing. All right, it's 10:52. I'm rocking and rolling here. Let's keep going, guys. Are you with me? Okay. The other one I wanted to just, you guys are probably using this. I loved using this, and I loved kind of adapting this. This is the My One Page Profile. You can Google this and print it off. There's templates online. Having your student do this is amazing because it builds relationships, and it's, again, they don't think of themselves in this way. They don't think, nobody sits down and asks them questions like, you know, what do people appreciate about you? And they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know. And then you might have to help them. Well, you know, do you give gifts? Are you thoughtful? Do you give rides? You know, what do they appreciate? That you're funny? All of those things. And in going through this is awesome for them. What's important to me and how can you support me? This is often a place where you're going to encourage them to be like, how do you like to be communicated with? How do you know people are supportive of you when they do what they say they're going to do, when they email me or give me a written list, when they remind me, when they don't yell or they don't get cross with me? Those are things they might want to put in here. These are person-centered approach tools. They're just for relationship building. They can be used for communication. I often say that this is awesome for staff. Lori had mentioned that in her old place that she used to work, they actually filled these out as staff people. And when they had a conflict, they went back to these and said, hey, you know, how does that person like to be communicated with? And this is a good example of one that's filled out that I found online, and this is more staff-based. Are you an administrator? Are you a teacher doing team building? How fun would it be to do these as a practice for maybe doing them with your students? Family night, or doing the family night. Reading through hers here, you guys can see, just to point out a couple of quick things. Get to me when you say you will and meet deadlines we have agreed on. Can we say that? Mine would be like, how best to support me. Don't make me endure a bunch of meetings. Just call me and tell me what I need to do, right? Don't make me listen to this lady on this webinar for an hour, but Lori Larson is going to kill me because they keep calling her out on this. She's on this webinar too, but we work together, and I used to drive her crazy as her boss because I'm a verbal processor. Imagine that, talk, right? So when we're trying to work on projects, I would come into her office and be like, okay, we're going to do this and this and this, and did you hear this and this and that student and blah, 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 and our client's this, and she would just be, and and I would be imparting information sometimes about what we're going to do together, and she'd be like frantically trying to write this down, and she just said to me, hey, can you send me an email with that stuff in it, important, the project-based stuff that I need to get done, because she needed something to look back on. And I was like, absolutely. Being willing to communicate with each other and honor your communication styles and know that and be able to say, hey, that would really help me out. And so I tried to do that, but I failed sometimes, right, Lori? Sometimes, but I did try to do that. So think of these as tools you can use with staff or students. I really like this too. When we were helping clients get employment, we have had them do a one-page, and when we're working with employers, it's really awesome to have a meeting with your employer once you get hired and say, here's a one-page about me, this is what I like, here's some of my likes, it really humanizes that person right away to their employer. And it is a cool conversational piece that you can do. And so I just wanted to throw that out there as well. Last but not least, guys, I wanted to put this up here because, again, really coming back to self-care. If you are finding yourself struggling with students, what is it? Struggling with your job roles, struggling with coworkers, try to drill down on that. Seek some help to say, I want to be creative. I want to get back to living with joy and purpose. And I want to be happy doing this. There is no reason we spend so much time of our day at work, in our lives at work. There's no reason that we can't try to make a change and try to make things work and happy for us. And when you're dealing with the high crisis people that we deal with, we have to learn to love them. We have to learn to know how they live. We have to meet them where they are, and we have to be happy about it in order to really thrive in our jobs. So hopefully you've gotten some tips today on how to do that. I'm going to open up the chat. Let me scroll down here. Again, if you guys want to grab my email off of here, if you have any questions, if I went too fast, if I didn't cover something, let me know. But I'm going to open up the chat, I think, right, Kim?
Tracy, right at the bottom, you have a question from John.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think I might have done this wrong. Oh, hey, hold on just a moment. Oh, I have to push the right button. John Anderson, in the want, don't want activity, how often have you needed to temper the goals and activities based on the information you have? All the time, John. Bingo. Yes, that is going to be your role. That is an amazing point. Remember when you ask somebody to dream big and nobody's asked them to dream before, they're going to dream big, and you know some of their limitations and you know those obstacles in the way. So I never discourage their biggest dream. If it's, I want to be an astronaut or an architect or whatever, I'm like, that's awesome. What made you love space? What do you love about space? Or what do you love about being a doctor? You know, what do you love about this? And not that they can't, it's just you want to make sure you never kind of squash that, but you want to drill down on why. And so often you can connect what would happen, like what would it take to become a doctor? You know, and if you don't have time, you could actually send them out to do that. Tell me what it takes. Don't get discouraged, but come back next week and tell me what it takes. And once they start realizing, you know, or you can bring that in, like, hey, this is the first step. This is the first step. And here's the thing I like to say to people, your goals can change. As you get through this, you might decide, hey, I'm going in a different direction. I still want to be in healthcare, but what is it that I love about healthcare? Well, I love serving people. You know, well, why don't we start with a CNA? And see if you do like it. Let's get your diploma, get your CNA, you know what I mean? So that's an awesome question. But yeah, don't temper the big dreams, but drill down on what they love about that. And then maybe have them do some research and come back and say, well, let's just keep going. You want to be in healthcare. Maybe there's other things. I hope I answered that okay, John. And I don't know if you guys are unmuted, but you can talk too, I guess, here. Let me go up in the chat. Andrew, how could this be presented to someone who's struggling but may not react well to this type of exercise? That's a good question. People may not want to sit down and do this in the form that we have them. And even if this looks like a great idea to us, maybe it's more of just starting out with conversation. What does a good life mean to you? And not mess with filling out a form and doing that, just the questions, just having those in your back pocket as you're talking to them, getting them to start thinking about that as they're going through life would be a good start. It doesn't have to be filling out the form, I think. So, oh, that one said reply in private. I'm terrible with this chat, guys. So Andrew, I'll try to do that, or email me. Kim posted the My One Page Profile template. There's also some other ones. Let's see, multiple intelligence. Steph Ritberger says, oh wait, she's saying reply in private. Sorry, guys. You guys were good. Kim got it. Divorce and medical, right? Inequality as its finest. So I think Steph asked about the cliff effect, and this is probably, let me look at my time here. I know we're at 11 o'clock. I'm just going to quickly say this. This is a really good point and a reminder to me that with this pandemic, we expect to have poverty. Some people are predicting poverty to go to Vietnam levels in 1967, which would be an increase of 22% poverty. That's insane. And we should expect that, particularly in the next few years. So we are going to have people who are really struggling, and we are going to have competition for benefits and competition for things. And how does that make us innovate? How can that make us be even more informed, even more focused on outreach and success and changing the systems? It's a wonderful opportunity for you smart people to get together and say, what is working in this field and what can we innovate and do, and how can we make this so people succeed? So I do think that's a really good point, Steph, and if anybody can do it, you guys can do it. I want to be respectful of time. Kim, is there anything else you wanted me to touch on before we go? Can you hear me, Kim?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
She's probably muted.
I didn't see anything else on the list.
Okay, great. Thank you guys again. I'm so excited. I wish I could see you all in person. I'm going to be presenting next week at the same time on From Crisis to Clarity. We're going to dig down on this pandemic and other crises you might have. We're going to get you to do a little high-level thinking about your goals and your dreams and how you can apply those to your work and provide meaning and joy, and in turn, give those gifts to your students and staff. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.